All right, hey everybody, welcome to Argent Alpha Unscripted. I've got Clint and Brock with me today. How you doing, guys?
Doing
Excellent.
great.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of background. We always meet before we record the podcast, and we go through our own personal accountability. We call our group the 10X Triad. We follow Dr. Benjamin Hardy's book, 10X is Easier Than 2X, as well as his new book, The Science of Scaling. And we just, in this meeting, kind of went through our Q4, what we want to get done, the big rocks, the big things we want to accomplish. And last episode, we talked about this whole idea of Q4 is an opportunity to pause or surge. And most men, most people pause in Q4. They just kind of, hey, it's the holidays. I'll start on January 1st. And we reframe that and say, it's the exact opposite. What are we going to surge on? And so in one of our meetings with our broader membership, we had this, we asked that question for guys, hey, what are the risks you're facing in Q4? What are the non-negotiables you're going to have to offset those risks? And how will you surge in Q4? And so Clint, Brock, and I just did that. But quite a few things fell out of that as we talked about it. And one of the things is this idea of the stories we tell ourselves. And I had a couple calls with members over the last 2 weeks. And it was funny. These are great guys, highly accomplished business guys. And they had taken on a story that was a version of their best self. And it was due to a lot of different things, work stuff, some injuries, health. And they just need a pep talk to be reminded about, you guys are studs. You're animals. You've been consistently winners in your life, and help them change that story they were telling themselves. Get out of that victim and villain mode and into the hero mode. And so, anyway, I just want to get Clint and Brock's sort of reflections and thoughts on that concept of the stories we tell ourselves and the roles we fall in, and how that can relate, how you can help you win Q4. So, Clint, I'll start with you. Like, and you know a lot of the guys we're talking about, and it's a common thing. But what's your thoughts just on this whole idea of surging into Q4 and the roles and stories?
Yeah. I mean, I love the thought of surging. I'm glad it was brought up. I'm glad we talked about it yesterday's meeting as well. So, yeah, we have the opportunity to, like you said, take it easy through the end of the year, or just go, to the wall and end up just on top and crushing it. There is the opportunity to well, I guess I'll digress. The power of the group is super important. Even this group, it's sometimes you just need that. Just like you said, hey, you guys are studs. You need to hear that, or we need to hear that motivation. Because sometimes just that little bit will just kick it up and light your rockets. Anyway, that's kind of my thought. Just there's no reason not to, other than sometimes just life, we make excuses, and we need a group, we need a tribe to help push us and let us know that we have more in us. We just did that today, and it helped me. So sometimes just thought partners are all you need to light the boosters.
Yeah, exactly. Lock arms and problem
Yeah.
solve. How
Yeah.
about you, Brock?
The community aspect is so big, and I get so much out of this, as I know you guys do. The three of us, and we've all had our hardships or down times where we need to kind of lift each other up. So the community aspect is huge. And one thing I think that from week to week or month to month, or even in the concept of the surge, this quarter, the year, it's we find ourselves in, when we struggle or kind of frame it up, telling ourselves a lot of these stories like you're talking, Jeg. A lot of them I think come down to the all or nothing. Like I got to get it all done, or I got to be maximum intensity, or even like the thought of surging, got to be balls out, or I don't know if I could say that on the podcast, but I just did. But just like hammer down at all times. It doesn't have to be that. It's like I love the military concept is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And I always come back to just consistency. Being consistent this quarter is no different than what we've been doing all year. It's just that we're choosing not to flounder into the last quarter. But guess what? It's going to be first quarter of 2026 is going to be the same thing, and, scale, like come back just a little bit. And I've been talking about this with some of my clients and actually a couple people this morning of, what are we doing here? As far as like some of the goals that we're working towards, or, it doesn't have to be that challenge mindset, or I got to get to this certain goal. I mean, what happens when you get there? Do you just quit, or do you find something else? It's just like we're identifying, we're shaping our health identity. And we're going to, once we get to the end of Q4, we're just reframing. We're going Q1 or all of 2026. We're going to continue to evolve and get better. But if we're in that all or nothing mindset, it's just like, I mean, we're putting ourselves at risk of falling off at some point instead of just like that slow as smooth, smooth as fast, super steady consistency. I mean, you could be really consistent in Q4 and you'll look back and be like, holy cow, I just surged through this, so that's just kind of where my mindset is with this.
Yeah.
Real quick, a thought I had is it's just like running a race, right? We've got these 12 months. You're not gonna take the last leg of the race and slow down. You're at least gonna keep your pace and you're gonna try and push through to get your PR, right? And that's kind of what we're doing. Why would we go into 26 having relaxed for the last quarter and digressing other than just finishing the race strong, and then just moving forward into 26. So
I don't know the name of the YouTube video, Clint, but you guys should YouTube this. Dang it, I should know what this is. I put it in the show notes. But they show this mile it's 4 laps on this YouTube video, and this guy starts and he's like getting torched by everybody. And then round 2, he's coming up, and then round 3, he's with everybody. Round 4, he pulls away.
oh
And
yeah.
they looked at it, and every single lap was the same speed. And it just shows that like so many people came out of the gates hard, and then they fell off, and then they fell off, and it looks like this guy is surging, but he just stayed consistent. Literally every lap was the same time. I'm just like, it's incredible. But
Hey, Brock, you just upped this podcast one level because now we're getting show notes. So, Jag, take note of that.
great. I got to find this YouTube video and put in the show notes then. I don't know what it's called
All
even.
right. I'm going to write a note, show notes, start doing.
Next level.
Next level, exactly. Well, hey, I want to dive into that all or nothing concept because one of the tools that we use in our planning and in setting standards and goals is something, if you can picture it, A, B, C, and then D in parentheses. And so what that means is you have 3 ways to win, 1 way to lose. A is your ambitious goal or standard. B is your baseline. C is a conservative. So 3 ways to win. D is did not do or drift. And so when you think of like Q4, whatever that is, nutrition, business, your fitness, you got 3 ways to win, to opt into closing strong. So you could have an ambitious approach to it, a baseline approach, or a conservative approach. They're all great. And but D is did not do. That's drift. That's pausing. That's like not maximizing. And we talk. A lot of our guys, most of them are business people. And so when we use the analogy of, hey, when you're in Q4, even if you're crushing your year, you always want to crush Q4. You want to maximize the bonus opportunity. You want to close strong. You don't coast. You never would coast. And so it's the same thing in your personal life. But I love the ABCD concept because it gives guys, it gets them out of all or nothing. And let's face it, it's hard to be sometimes pedal to the metal for 92 days straight. But being mainly in B and C mode with occasional bursts into the A will produce amazing results. So I don't know if you guys have used that with your clients and yourself.
Yeah. Let me put that in just like the fitness concept of this, of just I like what you said, Jag, like being at that baseline, that B or C, and then the occasional bursts into A. Like the A could be like in the fitness standpoint in the course of a week. Man, I got great sleep. I'm super rested, recovered. I feel like I could put out my best effort. I'm going to go for it. 1 to 2 times a week, I'm just going to put out kind of more of that maximum intensity or really, really hard effort. And then maybe 2, 3, 4 of them are in that B, just like your baseline. Hey, I'm going through some just steady strength, just going to, work my progressive overload. And then C is just like, man, I got terrible sleep, or I'm super trashed from just working hard the last couple of days. And it's the term that we use here all the time is something's better than nothing. I use that with my clients all the time. Something's better than nothing. I'm going to go for 10 minutes, 10 air squats, 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, or maybe it's 12 or maybe it's 15, but it's just body weight. Or maybe it's just I'm going to go for a ruck because that's what I do. Something's better than nothing. I could put on a weight vest and just go plod around the neighborhood for an hour or something like that. But D is just like doing nothing. I sat on the couch all day long. Okay, well, you can still sit on the couch, but get some mobility in before you go do that. You'll feel a lot better. Go walk around the neighborhood, something like that. But that concept, and that's not only in fitness. You could look at that in your nutrition, sleep, all that stuff. But people seem to get it or gravitate towards the exercise part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point, Brock. It just makes me think of a saying I heard a while years ago, but just even with your muscles. And so every day is not going to be PR. That's what we're saying essentially. You're not going to get a PR every day, but you want to stimulate, not annihilate. So if you're continually stimulating and not annihilate, you don't need to annihilate. So it's continuous, strategic.
Yeah, what I love about it too is most people when they look at it and they say like, so I've got three options, and there's so much psychology behind this. Like, you're going to pick one of the three. If I only give you one option, the chances that you choose it are probably going to drop dramatically because I don't like that. I mean, think about theater pricing. They give you three options on popcorn or soda, good, better, best, and the best is always priced like 10 cents higher. It's all you can eat. I mean, it's a similar kind of thing. Like they give you the options, but they're pointing you towards one. The beauty of the ABCD is it gives any one of them's awesome. You're going to keep the key is consistency and keeping your string alive. And we all know that's the name of the game for transformation is consistency. And then with occasional bouts of intensity. And so,
if you're tracking this too, like I have a lot of clients do that ABC. It's like, okay, well, last week we had 5 C efforts. What would it take to get you 1 or 2 more times into the B, your baseline? So it gives you opportunities to look at what you're doing. Man, you did 7 out of 7 in that in the ABCs. You didn't have any Ds, that's great. But then from there, how do we continue to layer up, level up? Do we change some of those standards? I mean, the ABC can be grams of protein too. C is 140, B is 160, A is 180. Hey, you have all C's except for one B. How do we get more into the B's? Or it could be something like that too. I've done that a number of times, and it allows you just to level up without missing. So
I'm glad you said that, Brock, because my mind was going to, we're talking about all of this, and I know everybody's listening, their mind is going to training, right? We're going to weightlifting or strength training or whatever. But in nutrition, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? And we see a lot of struggles with a lot of guys with this, you know. And so I was just thinking, like, if everything you ate was clean and you didn't track, you're still making progress, right? So if I ate 16 ounces of a grass-fed ribeye and I went over on my calories, I'm still good. So
let's relate this to sleep real quick. ABC, like how the heck did the ABCD thing with sleep? Well, A is maybe it's 10, 3, 2, 1, 10 hours before bed, no caffeine, 3 hours before bed, stop eating, 2 hours before bed, you stop drinking, and an hour before you get off screens. Like that's your A effort, where your B effort could be 10, 3, 2. I missed the screens before bed. And then C could just be, hey, I stopped eating, stopped drinking 3 and 2 hours, whatever those are. It could be pieces of that. So you give yourself opportunities to look at, hey, where are my opportunities for improvement within there? So
that's a great
you'd be
point.
done with sleep too.
Yeah, and nutrition. An A goal might be I achieved my protein target for the day. I stayed in a caloric deficit because I'm above my body comp target, and so I want to bring that fat down. And I ate clean whole foods for the whole thing. That's A effort. A B effort might be, well, I had 2 protein shakes, but I got all those other numbers there. It wasn't all whole food. A C effort might be, I just hit my protein goal, period, end of story. And so there's so many different ways to win. And I think guys who are initially starting with Argent Alpha, giving them that C opportunity helps them absorb all the content and start making the small changes. Like you don't have to, the whole Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't have to boil the ocean. And so, but you got to start somewhere. And then pretty soon that A effort today becomes 3 months from now, that's your C effort. And that's what's really cool about this stuff is today's PRs become tomorrow's standards. And, whether it's eating, sleeping, moving, and then you'll see that this is a good transition to the mindset piece. One of the things, the biggest pattern interrupts guys can do is to stop and say, what story am I telling myself right now? And one of the beauties of having a community with guys posting stuff is you can start seeing how they think based on what they write. And so one of the most recent things I read was something about a guy saying, I've been a bad sleeper since birth. So you just analyze that story of what that guy was telling himself. And so what if you just started by changing that story and just said, even if it's not quite true, I sleep like a rock. I sleep like a baby. I sleep really well. Just change your story. And then you say, well, what needs to be true for that to be true? Well, I follow 10-3-2-1. I have a consistent bedtime. I have a cold, dark room. And you start and these are all things we teach. But it starts with, you got to change your story. Because if you hold on to that limiting belief of, I've been a bad sleeper since birth, any of the tools we give you are probably not going to work because you don't believe you're a good sleeper. So changing that story you tell yourself, it all has to start with, and that's where I'm kind of a believer in, like, you know what, you got to fake it till you make it a little bit sometimes. And so I'll tell myself that, like I'm an awesome rucker with weight, because my knees not always doesn't always agree with that statement. But I've really improved things by focusing on the stories that I've changed, that I've told myself. So anyway, what do you guys think about stories?
I think that's such an
stories?
important part. That's such an important part to be do have. Even writing it down, it's I would even say it's not faking it till you make it. It's just affirming, But be do have, and you're not going to have anything, and you're not going to you're not going to be able to have anything before you become it. So you might as well start becoming it. And what you write, your language pattern is huge.
Let's remind everybody what be do have is.
It's just like I guess the analogy I always remember is you're not going to have a fire without putting the wood in first, or you've got to put the wood in before you have a fire, and you need to be the person and do the things that person does before you can have it, not the other way around. You're not going to wait till you have it to then do it. So.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Brock.
I was just going to say, your mind goes in the direction of your strongest thoughts. So whether that's negative or positive, your mind goes in the directions of your strongest thoughts. And I was listening to my boy Ed Milet talk on a podcast this weekend when I was doing a house project. And I had to take a note. He mentioned that your mind goes in the directions of your strongest thought. He goes, okay, well, let's take a step back. What is thinking? He goes, what is a thought? And I wrote this down. He goes, a thought is asking yourself a question and answering it. So ask yourself better questions and you'll have better thoughts and better answers. You then take those answers and put action and intention behind them. And talk about actionable right there, of just like, there's your roadmap, start asking yourself better questions, start thinking deeper thoughts, ask better questions. And then the answers that you come up with from there, take those answers and put actions and intentions behind them. Those could be your ABCs, those could be the really small actions or intentions that you act on.
Well, it's funny. We've heard so many stories and how they've changed. Again, I've never been a good sleeper. I don't eat that way. I haven't been in a grocery store for 30 years. I'm not an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I don't learn new things easily. Those are all just stories. They're only true if you actually believe they're true. And so we've seen guys who, 65-year-old men who's like, yeah, I'm an athlete now. And they believe it and they're executing like it. And the reason we like that framing of we're athletes is athletes train specifically with an objective in mind. And when they do that, the body and the mind follows. It just always does. And again, who doesn't want to be an athlete? So change the story you're telling yourself is another huge tool. And then you get into the role you're playing. Hero, victim, villain are the three primary ones. Once you become a hero, you earn your way into the guide. And again, that's probably another podcast. We can go deeper into the roles. But so far we've talked about the ABCD method, the stories you tell yourself, all or nothing. We talked about some limiting beliefs, stories we tell ourselves. What else? All from just the conversation we had in our meeting prior to this.
Yeah.
And we the main reason we do this podcast is so all three of us can get better. And if anybody else benefits, that's just gravy, because this is part of the whole learning in public part of this thing. By doing this podcast, we're all sharpening our own saws. And so that's another invitation for guys, like, not only listen to this podcast, but go out and start trying new stuff that you're not good at. And you'll be amazed at what happens in your life. Go ahead.
And share this podcast. It's the fastest growing podcast in the whole world.
One of the important things,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
number one, hey, one of the most important things I'm thinking of is you need a group, either a small group like this or a larger group to tell you these things. My mind doesn't go to these things. If I'm telling myself, oh, I'm a bad sleeper, you guys have both, kicked me in the ass several times on language. And I'm big on language too. You need somebody to see that for you because we don't always see it. You don't always see the story you're telling yourself. And that's one of the keys to it.
Totally. You, Jake, you brought up something talking about the athlete, and like we must be talking to the same person because I was talking to a 65-year-old gentleman who talks about himself being an athlete too, and it's actually going to be what my newsletter comes out on Monday is on this too. And like picture. Got a 65-year-old who's looking at himself as an athlete because he's training, because he's being super intentional with what he's doing, right? And then go back to like, what do we think of as athletes? We think about that the person back in college or high school that was really good and they were a top level athlete. And guess what they're talking about? They're sitting around a bar stool right now talking about how good they used to be back in college 20, 30, 40 years ago. And they haven't done anything since. Is that really the athlete, or is that just, think about where their mindset is at. They're coasting. They've given up. They're not pushing forward. Where an athlete's always training to get better. Who cares if you haven't been an athlete your entire life and you are just starting to think about this at 64, 65, 66, because you're intentionally taking efforts or putting effort forth to get better.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, hey, we're going to wrap it up. What's coming down the road here in later this quarter, we're going to talk about 2026 planning, probably quite a bit. I can see ourselves, even though this is unscripted, I'm just going off the top of my head, we'll be talking about different tools we use in our planning process. Sneak preview, we're going to talk about future self. We talked about ABCD goals. We'll talk about the 3 words exercise. We might talk about the eulogy exercise. We might talk about avoid versus approach goals. Each one of those topics deserves its own podcast, but we'll do our best to knit all this together. There might even be an opportunity to get our planning guide. Got to get that finalized. But stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Clint, Brock, thanks for making the time for this, and we'll see you guys next episode.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, you guys. Take care.